Good day and welcome to another edition of the National Agenda. And today on the show, we are discussing the report that has been submitted to the President. And if I'm talking about the report submitted to the President, I mean the Constitutional Review Committee's report that was submitted to the President. Look, we'll look at some of the key highlights and some of the things that they seek to change. But let me also inform you that I have two very important personalities in the studios with me today to discuss it. I would introduce them when I return. But for now, my name is Samuel Ofobi Bamfo. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thank you for sticking and staying with us. And let me go straight to introduce to you my guest in the studios today. I have with me Jata Nelson, who is a youth activist and a social commentator. Jata, it's good to have you in the studio today.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Good. And with him is Nazil Saeed. And you know, whenever Nazil is on the set, it's time to explain things and explain facts. He's speaking on behalf of the government, and I don't know, I'm tempted to say he's a member of the communications team. Am I allowed to do so?
In the shortest possible time.
Okay, all right. So, gentlemen, it's good to have you all in the studio.
I'm happy to be here.
Good. Nazo, I'm going to start with you, and I want us to look at some key highlights in the report that was submitted under the leadership of Professor Henry
Kwesi Prempeh.
Yes, Professor Henry Kwesi Prempeh. And I want us to look at some of the things. One of the key things that got my attention is the extension of the tenure of office from 4 years to a 5-year period. I'm trying to find out why that decision. Why are they recommending that we do that? I would love that you give us some sort of an insight on that.
All right. Good day to all our cherished viewers and listeners. I'll send our greetings to the over 35 million well-meaning Ghanaians. First of all, we have to appreciate the relevance of the work that has been done by the Constitutional Review Committee. It is important that we appreciate that the Constitution in itself is a living document, and for that reason, it must resonate with contemporary needs of every society. So as Ghana, having adopted a constitution that has worked for us for over 30 years, many people have passed on over this period. So it should tell you that the living element in the constitution must be revived. And as such, it is important that a review is conducted to amend various aspects of the constitution that may not necessarily in modern times allow us to have a sound understanding and bearing of. So it's very important, and we acknowledge the fact that over the years there's been attempts to review the constitution, but it is unfortunate that the findings and the recommendations have not been able to successfully be implemented. So it is very good for us as a country that over 3 decades, a little over 3 decades now, we've been able to officially come out with recommendations, and if things are done right and expedited, we could see the constitutional review actually seeing the light of day. First of all, I'll comment Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, his team, Madam Charlotte Essay, Mr. Godwin, and all the other expertise, Dr. Kakari, and all the other members who have put in the effort to make sure that this also sees the light of day. Personally, I hold an entrenched position that a 5-year presidential term is not the way to go. There's a common Akan adage that says that if you are given the other time on this show, I made an analogy that even in our days of student leadership, we were given 8 months. It was brandished as a year of administration, but we were doing what we were supposed to do in that period.
Certainly.
In the first year of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, he spent 4 years. But many of us give him the credence as a nation builder to have been one of the presidents who significantly invested in infrastructural development in this country. The signature continues to be there, and we are going to continue to accord him that respect. We've seen presidents serve different 4-year terms, and it's been the best that we could get out of them. So you ask yourself, what is that extra year going to give our people in power? If anything, as I said, Kakan adage says, but to wait, if a game is going to be nice or beautiful, it starts from the very it begins from the morning. It begins from the morning. So indeed, in every 4-year term, if there's going to be success at the end of the tunnel, it could also be started. It could also be seen from the start of the administration. For instance, in this administration, what are we seeing? In the first year, people have resonating with the government. People believe in the vision of the government. It doesn't mean the president needs a 5-year term. In any case,
but there are also people who would come and argue with you on the fact that they believe that once a good thing has started, then we need to give that
is why I'm
push.
Coming.
You understand?
That's why I'm coming. I continue to beg to differ. So people may raise arguments that, for instance, this Mahama administration is doing splendid and it can continue for the 4-year period. They are going to do very well, hopefully. Now, in any case, you're not going to get Mahama as the kind of president you expect in any case on multiple times or different times in our political
history. Why
is that? Just a while ago, just a little over a year ago, we had a different administration. The Egyptians, I continue to say, whom we seek to see no more. Can you imagine the kind of hardship, the kind of terror that Ghanaians were going through under this administration, and they had another year to rule this country? How would Ghanaians have felt?
But then again, if we have a good leader and we have a 4-year term, and there's a need for us to extend to another year, so that will also do us more good.
That becomes unconventional, such that who determines who is a good leader and who is going to trigger that 5th-year term? When there's a bad leader, who determines that this administration? In any case, if we were in this country last year, when we were in this country, when we were going through financial crisis, people continue to raise arguments that the things were going all right in this country. People continue to raise arguments that adding more taxes to us was the way. So, who determines what a good administration is and a bad one is? So, for me, any good administration can deliver in the 4-year period. And if indeed you are good, Ghanaians will renew your mandate for you at the end of the 4-year presidential tenure.
Okay,
so there's no ambiguity with that, and we should stick to the 4-year tenure. And I believe, as a student of politics and somebody who is advancing, anybody in the rank and file of a political party wants to advance into a different portfolio. So in that, the presence of that interest will not even allow many of these interests to survive. Because in any case, people are also eyeing the seat for presidency. So that 5-year-long period builds some level of tyrannic behavior amongst the rank and file of our government. So it's very important that we stick to our 4. If you are indeed doing good, unlike the rhetorics, if you are indeed doing good, I believe Ghanaians will renew that mandate for you to serve for the longest period you want.
All right, so thank you for that. Let me come to you, Jatta. Now, just as he said, there are others who also believe otherwise. I mean, he's made his point. But I want to know from you, from the youth's perspective, from the perspective of the chunk of the Ghanaian population, that's the youth I'm talking about. Do you side with them or you believe otherwise?
All right, Ofobi, thank you very much. And I acknowledge all the points that my brother has raised. They are very, very valid and tangible points. But I think he's viewing it more from a pessimistic perspective.
But I believe it's also coming from a more political angle.
Okay,
where people
I am viewing it from a more optimistic perspective, in a sense that, I believe that in order for us to achieve a more sustainable national development, or you can say national agenda, I think we need a longer period, or enough or sufficient period for the governments of the day to do their business, because we all know that when a new government comes into power, about the first 6 to 7 months is a period for them to transition to find their foot. And we have been in a country where we all witnessed what happened during the most recent transitioning period, where there were public sector was overstacked with employment, and then there were lots of scandals, and looking at the NSS level, and because of those delays, it led to the posting of NSS people. It's delayed because they had to get a new system, and so it becomes a problem. So when we view it from this angle, I come to the realization that the first 1 year, by the time we realize it is already gone, and we spend that transitioning, then it means technically we are left with just 3 years for the government to perform, and the last year will also be spent on campaign and elections.
I mean, so those are just valid points over there. Sorry that I had to come through, but then one is also likely to argue and say that once we allow them to add 1 more year, there could be the situation where politicians would relax, knowing that, I have another year.
No, that wouldn't be the case, because the reason for which we are giving that extra 1 year is to enable them to achieve whatsoever they started, so that in Ghana here we have a system where most political parties are able to serve 2 terms. Most presidents, I think the only one who was not able to serve 2 terms is the late Professor J.E. Mills. He was the only one who has been able to serve that 2 terms, but every other president was able to serve it. So if we are giving a president 10 years, at the end of that 10 years is enough for you to achieve or whatsoever. And also, just to add a bit to it, in all advanced democracies around the world, when I speak of Ireland, I speak of Italy, I speak of Portugal, I speak of Israel, all those countries, they practice over 5 years tenure of office. And when you look across the world, I don't think the global standard is 4 years. Even when it comes to Africa, Nigeria, Senegal, and some other African countries, they also do about 5 years.
Okay.
So,
all right. So let's do this. Let's do this quickly. On the issue of the presidential term, now I know that the parliamentarians they are recommending that parliamentarians are also whipped in line. So parliamentarians' term of office be extended to 5 years in a term, but to only a second opportunity. So it means that after 10 years, regardless of who you are, you do not qualify to stand and be a parliamentarian again. I saw that bit. I stand corrected. I saw that bit where they are asking that, whoever stands for an MP or member of parliament after the second term of office, which is the 10 years, is not allowed to do so again.
Honestly, Ophobi, I've not seen that particular.
But what would be your response to that?
But I wouldn't think that is fair, because there are people that are career MPs. This is what they want to do.
Career MPs.
Okay. As this is what they want to do for a lifetime. And so they put in all the effort, and they are so committed to their constituencies. And as far as they keep giving the result, the people will keep pushing and voting them to maintain that office. So, it wouldn't be fair at all to the MPs if there is such recommendation. That is why it's a recommendation, and left up to us to,
to decide on it.
To discuss and then
all right, quickly. So, you have spoken for the youth in so many instances, and I want to find out. Now, they are recommending that we reduce the age limit. Now, it's been moved from 40 to 30. And how do you respond to that?
I think that's a good news, because Ghana is we have a very youthful population. And every election, you could notice that the youth, we go more to vote. We go more to do all the campaign and stuff, but we do not get the chance to be voted for.
And even be part of decision making. Let me put it like that.
Decision making. So it somehow prevents the voices of the youth or opportunities given to the youth to perform directly in government. It hampers that. So I think this particular recommendation is one that the youth embrace, and every youth is super excited about this one, because going forward, we'll be looking forward to seeing young people like my brother Said himself standing to be elected.
I get it. So Said, let me come to you quickly. You have been at the forefront when it comes to youth leadership, rising through the ranks from USAC through to NUCS.
NASPA.
Which arguably, even to NASPA, which arguably is like the biggest student front we have in the country. How do you respond to the decision to reduce the age limit to 30?
All right. So before I come there, let me chip in some of the things my brother said.
Yes.
See, when my brother talked about us looking up to the advanced democracy, he forgot the biggest democracy to ever exist in the United States of America, which is doing the same as we are doing. So I keep saying, I've said on this show before, that left to the average African politician, they would have perpetual tenure of office. So if you leave that to the discretion of an average African politician, they wouldn't want to leave office. And in any case, what are we building as a country? What social policy or political policy at all are we building that you need a period of
5 years,
almost a decade to build that? It doesn't sit well with me.
Is huge.
And again, now when you look at the constitutional review, they are mandating that the National Development Planning Commission's work now goes through Parliament, and it becomes a binding part of our political atmosphere, such that even our political manifestos would have to be drawn from the National Development Plan. Yeah. So now it will get to a point where you don't actually need to be doing anything extra.
We just can be followed. The
political class can be taken away, and a pattern of development will be there, just as our father and Nkrumah.
Then we don't need if that is something to go by, then I don't think it will be too necessary to have even 10 years period.
Yeah. However, now let me talk about the age system as well. I mean, as we youth, I would want to be selfish on the conversation because it's very important for us. Many people, when we meet at students' conference and we are engaging, what we continue to talk about is we are waiting to cross the 40-year gap. And when you are doing well, even within the political space, the conversation around is, oh, he's young. He's yet to cross the 40-year gap. Or he can't be touted for the office of vice president because he has to reach this gap. So, I mean, just as my brother said, when you look at some advanced democracies, like in France, Slovenia, and co., it's even been brought down to 18, that they believe that, yes, wisdom and knowledge is not tantamount to age. So as a matter of fact, you shouldn't be anywhere 30, 40, 50 before you can rule a country. If you are an adult enough to make the basic decisions for yourself. You are fit enough to rule the country.
And you have the money.
If you have the resources. I mean, this is a very suitable practice. When you look at the Westminster Constitution in the 70s and the 80s, this is what permitted the likes of His Excellency J.E. Kufuor and co. to even enter Parliament at the ages of 21, 22 and co. So she tell you that this practice, for instance, for me, I believe is very important. And for a country that has a youthful population of about 40%, almost 40% of our population being youthful, it is important that the youth are given the opportunity to run for such offices.
All right, so let's look at some of the highlights. Let me mention them briefly, and then we'll take our bites on it. So, one of the recommendations we have seen is that they are asking that presidential salaries and other benefits go through taxation. We're also seeing that they are recommending that MPs, members of Parliament, be decoupled from becoming ministers. So if you're a member of Parliament, you may not necessarily have the opportunity to be appointed as a minister. And then we're also seeing limiting or maintaining the 76 constituencies or members of Parliament. And then they're asking that we allow Ghanaians with dual citizens to be members of Parliament. As I'm sure it's coming at the backdrop of the precedents that was set some time ago. Where they are sent not MP's case. And then we're also seeing that they should allow criminal proceedings within the 4-year period of leaving office.
That's for personal acts.
Yes, for personal acts. And let's respond to this quickly.
All right, so Ofobi, the one that caught my attention the most has to do with the fact that ministers, the recommendation that suggests that ministers should not be members of Parliament. And I think that particular recommendation is a very good one because there are so many MPs today as we speak that are in Parliament. They are there mainly because they want to advance
and become ministers.
So they have turned Parliament into some waiting room for becoming a minister, knowing very well that the easiest way to become a minister is first being a member of Parliament. And so just taking off that, now we will get the serious people who are truthfully interested and invested in the affairs of serving their constituents. People who are really, really committed to this purpose. I made mention of career MPs.
Certainly.
These are the people that we want them to be in Parliament. And then those who want to be at the executive level to serve as ministers, they should not be involved in Parliament. And so that also brings about separation of powers.
Because I have always been of the view that the essence of Parliament is to make laws, decisions, take decisions for people in the country. However, people go to Parliament and it looks as though they are there to represent their political parties. And at the end of the day, they are influenced by the parties that brought them, the executive. So if one person is performing dual roles, you are a lawmaker and then again an executive. I don't see where the checks and balances are. You understand? Nazo, your response to some of these highlights.
Okay, so before I'll touch on the members of Parliament not being ministers. I mean, what's the foundational principle behind even the arms of government that we have? One of the foundation principles that's back in it is by these Jim Budins and co that says that there has to be separation of powers, such that these three arms of government must function independently of their own. However, there also has to be the principle of checks and balances. Now, how do you check yourself?
If you belong to both sides.
Parliament is supposed to probe into the activities of the executive. Now, you go to Public Accounts Committee and your colleague whom you sit next to in Parliament is seated before you and you're supposed to probe into matters that he or she has committed. How do you check the person?
In fact,
there's
you rub my back, I rub your back.
Yes, there's a meter of cronyism over there. So for me, it sounded very good to my ears. And just as my brother said, it has become a waiting room, a yardstick for people to become ministers, because it is constitutionally entrenched that 80% of ministers must be drawn from Parliament.
Wow.
And as such, anybody would want to become an MP first before assuming the office as a minister. So for me, it's very important that ministers are appointed separately. And there we will see the real ones who actually want to be in legislating in Parliament and those who want to be implementing with the executive. As he said, now when you look at, when you watch a lot of sittings, you see Right Honorable Speaker Babin talk continuously, caution members. They are not in the house. Where do you think they are? They are out there looking for money. They are out there serving their constituents. Others are also just outside somewhere lobbying for stuff. Now there's a clear distinction, because Ofobi, people have different portfolios in government.
Okay.
There are first-time MPs in Parliament. People have been appointed CEOs. People have been appointed...
Even when they are members of Parliament?
No. I'm talking about the rank and file of the political party. People have been appointed CEOs. At the end of the 4 years, the parliamentarian, knowing very well that sitting in Parliament is not going to amass any kind of wealth, would want to go out there and be looking for money. Some are involved in different kinds of businesses by the clearance of the Speaker of Parliament. They are involved in other kinds of businesses, because at the end of the day, in 4 years' time, they will go to the polls. And at your primaries, if a CEO who has bigger emoluments than you comes to contest you in the primaries, you will have a round for your money. So you will also not sit in Parliament. You go out there looking for money. Yeah. So there's some of these dynamics. It's even going to kill the monocracy that happens in our primaries and our elections. Okay. Because the rush to enter Parliament to now bag a ministerial position will be limited. That indeed, if you want to be a minister, you work for it. Prove yourself to the leader of the government, and indeed you ascend that throne. You don't have to necessarily put pressure on Parliament. And as part of that clause, they added a cap that now total ministers must be capped to 57.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of arguments, and I feel like the acts of His Excellency the President has now become the benchmark.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the country do so good. Unlike what we saw in yesteryears, over 100 ministers and our economy kept dipping. Now we are doing 57 and the economy is doing good. All facets of the country are responding positively. And if the Constitutional Review Committee indeed believes that 57 is the way, I believe we could just alter it. There should be a broader consultation and adjustment, because now we are short of 3 ministers, such that we know where the loopholes are, we are able to fix them. Also, you also mentioned about capping the total number of constituencies in Parliament to 276. For me, as a strong believer in decentralization and how the local government system works, I don't believe that is the way. I believe that as a country, eventually we are going to grow. The population grows. Now, there's the local government has described that to become a district, you have to be over 100,000 population. Eventually, we are a growing population.
But then again, they didn't leave the local government system out.
Exactly.
There's a point where they stated that we should deepen the political and fiscal decentralization by including
even traditional
rulers.
Okay.
And then even allowing us to elect MMDCs.
So I'm coming there. So as we are now wanting us to even deepen our decentralization process, how are we deepening decentralization when our population is growing? Look at Domi Kwabenya, for instance. How long has there been calls for a division in the constituency? That's the constituency I find myself in. It can take you about an hour to navigate around the constituency. There are about other 4 or 5 constituencies in some part of some other regions. Now you use 10 minutes, you will navigate 4 constituencies. It should tell you that we are still having problems with our decentralization system. The local government structure hasn't been fully set. So if you are going to cap it this way, it's going to have a ripple effect on our decentralization. So for that one, I believe we can do something rather than 276. There could be a cap, somewhere less than 300, no more than 300, such that eventually when the need arises, in just the last decade, we've added 6 new regions. So eventually there's going to be more work done here. So I would want that.
But personally, I believe that we can keep it at this point for a while.
Yeah, I subscribe to that.
And probably instead of adding another constituency, we remove some and add them to, nearest constituencies that are smaller in size.
Sure.
I think that could balance it, if that is something we can look at. Jata, on the issue of allowing traditional rulers to be part of the local government structure. I believe that, look, we have seen the effort of the Otumfo in recent times and some other leaders. What will be your take on that?
When it comes to our traditional authorities, the power they wield at the local level is one that we cannot underestimate. And it's clear from the Boku mediation and the efforts of Otumfo and Domahini in fighting Galamsey. So it clearly tells that there were even places that the government could put a ban on, and then yet people will still be doing their stuff. But when the chiefs speak, the people really listen to their traditional authorities. So as a progressive nation that we want to strengthen our local government system, I think it is just good that we incorporate our chiefs and traditional authorities into that system so that it can fully function. It can directly target the people from the base. It is, I think, it's an indirect approach to still ensuring that law and order is maintained at the local level. So when there is let's say when there is the assembly, let's say a district assembly, the district assembly comes up with a project. Sometimes those projects face resistance even from the local authorities.
Yeah.
For instance, the construction of roads. There are certain places that the people are not willing they have their own myths governing the place, that they do not want certain things to be done, but it is from the government. But this time around, when the local the chiefs are part of the decision-making process, the chiefs will now speak to their people that under my auspices or under my agreements, we are doing this project. I don't think it would face any form of resistance.
Okay. All right. So we have said a lot, but let's not forget the issue on equal representation in parliament and in governance. Now there's a push for a shift in on equal representation, i.e. the inclusion of women, and if the so-called, I beg your pardon, the so-called less privileged, there's that push for that in the recommendation. What would be your response to that?
I think that is women are largely, I think, in government, women and people with, let me say, special needs are largely underrepresented, in a sense that they do not have the means, and they do not have the means or the exposure or even the moral support to participate in governance that much as compared to men. But until recent times, I think the women are actually, taking a lot of leading roles in government. So I mean, for the women, it's already something that is existing. But for the people with special needs, I think this recommendation is one that is going to favor them, because when we also have them as part of government, I think their concerns can be given special attention, because they know best what they feel and what best would work for them. So having them serve, at that level, give them some level of recognition and representation. All right. Now, so I think it's fair.
All right. Sorry about that. Let me quickly come through with this. Now, on the issue of accountability, and should I say judiciary, but let me put it like that. On the issue of accountability, now there's a push for another independent anti-corruption institution that will have the prosecutorial power. I am raising this up because I find it a bit worrying. We already kind of have these structures in place, like we've seen with the OSP, the Office of the Special Prosecutor. You understand? The Attorney General, right? I mean, he has the mandate to investigate and prosecute, same as the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But now there's another call for another independent anti-corruption office or institution. What would be the response to that? Because, I mean...
Yeah, Phoebe, thank you very much. So let me quickly touch on the assisting with persons with disabilities and less endowed people. I think in the past administration, we saw the passage of the affirmative action bill, which is a step in the right direction. And we look at this administration, we have a leading person, the person of the Vice President, Mama, Professor Nana Pukwajima. So I should tell you that there's a tremendous effort on this part, the Green Party, to make sure that indeed persons with disabilities, women, marginalized groups are inculcated and involved in Parliament and other the government at large. Ophobi, I told you the other time over here that the Office of the Special Prosecutor, from its onset, was an unconstitutional office, and that was the argument that now Majority Leader Mahama Ayarika has raised consistently way back.
All right, so this is more or less like seeking to constitutionalize
so this provision is to make the OSP find expression in our constitution, because it had no constitutional backing as an establishment, and that's why they had to draw its powers from the Office of the Attorney General. Mind you, the Office of the Attorney General is not an independent office. The Office of the Attorney General is part of the executive arm of government, such that its heads are political appointees. So that is where the dichotomy lies, and it's important that this entrenched clause has been added here. So eventually, OSP is going to find expression, if this is passed, to become find expression in our constitution,
and even have a commission that supports.
Yes, that's going to work effectively and have the prosecutorial powers that it even has now. But I think this is going to be a fully fledged one, such that they can take up cases, start and end on their own.
No,
I think this is very positive.
Since you've decided to even touch on that, let me ask this follow-up question: the issue of declaration of assets and on sealed records. What would be your take on that as well?
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction, because for so long a time we've had people amass unquestioned wealth, amassed kind of wealth that cannot be explained in this part of the country. Now political appointees are being compelled to declare their assets. I mean, the president, I beg to say, even threatened, quoted unquote, his cabinet, his ministers, and every rank and file in his government to declare their assets, otherwise risk the appointment. And you saw the rush with almost everybody had to declare their assets. It's very important that going in this direction, we entrench this position, and even with unsealed records and what have you, all of that be declared for the Office of the Administrator General to be able to do a good work, and even the Auditor General to do a good work.
All right, so Jata, let me come to you. We are leaving, but let me quickly find out on the issue of meting out justice, on the issue of punishment. Now they are seeking to remove or abolish death penalty, and I mean, this used to serve as a source of deterrent to a lot of criminals, hardened one, of course. But don't you think that the removal of the death penalty would rather soften things? I stand to correct it anyway. What would be your response to that?
Thank you very much. But I think that the removal of the death penalty is not it's not something that they are trying to temper justice with mercy at all. But I think let us go back to the principles for which people are being sentenced, or reasons for which we take people to the courts. We take these people to prison, or they are being punished so that they can be reformed and transformed. So I think death penalty is too harsh, and death penalty raises serious
but what happens if you take
human rights?
If you take a life,
But if you take a life, if you commit murder, taking a life, and then we also taking your life, I don't think it transforms you, the individual. So it first of all violates the reason for which the punishment is being meted out. The purpose of punishment, as I said, is towards mainly to transform. So when you take the person's life, who are you transforming? You get what I'm trying to say?
I get you.
So it's a serious human rights concern, and I believe that everyone deserves to be alive.
Another chance.
Everybody deserves another chance.
When they committed the murder, that person did not get a second chance.
Yes, that's why the laws are there to to drag them, and there are better ways that we can still punish them. When we end their lives, it doesn't really bring us anything. But trust me, Ophobi, instead of giving someone death penalty, we can sentence the person to life imprisonment with hard labor, and the person can be working on the farms, making meaningful contribution to agriculture. So there are many ways. There are prisoners that we do see them on the street, removing the gutters and all of that. I mean, they are making meaningful contributions. Yeah. So the end game shouldn't just be about ending the individual. And I always say that it is not the individual that is bad, but it is the act that is bad. But we are just punishing the individual so that he will realize that what he has done is bad, serve as deterrent to others, and give the person room to also transform.
I mean, if for nothing at all, I know that person who is being punished also has a human right. Yeah. And that human right needs to be protected. I want to believe it is based on that backdrop that this decision is being taken.
Exactly.
So let me come to you. We have a lot of companies, private companies, multinational companies in our country, mining, helping us extract our natural resources. And what we see, in the long run, we see that most of the communities in which mining and other activities are held are in a deplorable state. Now, I am seeing the push for, resources that come as a result of the mining or the extraction of our natural resources, be used for certain development projects in that same community. And I see this to be in the right direction. What was really the motive behind this, and what do we seek to achieve even by recommending this?
Okay, once again, let me come from there. So, you're talking about the death penalty and the person having rights, but let's clarify this. Immediately you are convicted, having committed a particular crime, your rights are taken away from you. That is why you are being housed there. But however, I also believe that as a non-radicalist, as Mahatma Gandhi said, an eye for an eye make the world go blind. So it is not so necessary that because a person has taken a life, you also take the life of the person. In any case, the last time we used the death penalty in Ghana was in the 90s, somewhere 93 or 92.
A lot of presidents have even shied away from signing it.
By firing squad. That was the last time we used one. So it should tell you that, as I said, contemporary times deserve contemporary solutions. Hard labor, we could be using the strengths of these individuals.
I mean, we don't have to even bring in Chinese people to come and build our roads for us. They should be just go and do it.
We have cheap labor in our prisons, we can use them. Now, you talked about, I thought you were not going to mention it. That's my people. And so, mines of different types, gold, bauxite, aluminium, has been very much present in this part of our country, this part of the world, for a very long time. Since the 1940s, the 1950s, even the 1920s, even in the 18s, this extractive industry in our part of the world has been continuously been explored. Now, you want to question yourself how Ghanaians have benefited from it. Go to Takwa, go to Shrano, Prestia, Obuasi, and all the mining copy communities, and you see that the ripple effect of what people would compare Ghana to, compare Obuasi to Johannesburg is not what we are seeing. Now, what basically normally is being done is that 1% of the resources that are being extracted in these mining areas are allocated to the communities. Now, the constitutional provision here seeks to raise that to 3%. That should tell you over 200, over 3 times the initial figure that we were seeing. This should send some monumental developmental projects to the mining communities, and it should boost the local economy as well. And the long age complaints, demonstrations, fights that we see in our mining host communities, I think we would
and I believe that once this is done, then it would give way for us to even fight, galamsey operators properly, because at the end of the day, we know that money is coming from those that are already extracting legally. And we are developing the communities. So if you are not doing it the right way, if it gives us the room to even identify you quick, and it gives us every authority and every right or every grounds to even fight you. And
that should also make you touch on the introduction of the ecocide offense to fight illegal mining. The Constitutional Review Committee, in their right senses, suicide being a very grave offense, have now introduced what they term as ecocide. That's an ecological suicide causing harm to our biodiversity or our environment to become an offense, such that we're able to trial people in that manner.
So I mean, illegal mining becomes
a full offense on its own, causing harm to our environment.
Then they've done a human job.
A really tough. When you look at the preamble to the reports where I was reading, they made it clear that they read reports from the 90s, even from the draft of the 1992 Constitution. They read the summaries under President Kufuor, somewhere 2003, 2004, the review committee that was set. They read the reviews under the first John Evans Atamil's government, which was not complete. They also read the report under the from the Akufo-Addo administration, the summaries of all of these reports. So it should tell you the amount of documents, and they list all the literature there. Over 15 documents were perused, even from the past, before they also continued.
Even against the backdrop of interviews and interactions they had with
corporate CSOs, political parties, students groups. They met us when we were even in office as NUC's leadership. So it should tell you that they've really done a thorough job at that.
I mean, even the members of the committee, come from all aspects of the society. And
Prof. Kakari, Dr. Arena,
We even have our former EC.
Yeah, Charlotte Osei and co. Yeah, I think she has also made certain inputs with regards to elections.
Exactly.
Setting up an independent organization to regulate the activities of political parties and also political party financing and all of that. I think that's the reason why her expertise were drawn, especially from that angle.
I see. And then I also saw something on national media. I saw something like, because I know there's a media related person who was on the committee, and I mean, generally I believe they've done a yeoman's job, and they deserve to be commended for what they've done. But let's wrap up. As we wrap up, I want to find out, what is the government seeking to do now that they have received the committee's report?
All right, so Fobi, thank you very much. So I think there's no ambiguity over here. For a very long time, constitutional reviews past administrations have attempted to review the constitution and try to amend certain provisions to meet contemporary needs, but many plans have failed to yield any positive results. What this government seeks to do is to make sure that all of these strides that have been made over the 2 or 3 decades ago are now consolidated. So there are some of the provisions that are subject to referendums. There are some of the provisions that will be subject to parliamentary approval. So eventually, I think there's going to be a broader consultative process. There's going to be an intrinsic review of all the summary and then the document that has been submitted. And I trust the president and his team to do a yeoman's job with the people around, the advice of all of the expertise around, to do a yeoman's job in making sure that eventually every bits of the most important things that have been inputted here are subject to review and then follow up from there implemented for us. Especially, I'm waiting for the referendum on the extension of the presidential term, because that one, according to the 1992 constitution, must be subject to a referendum. It cannot be changed by Parliament. So eventually,
we look up to
personally, I'll vote down on that, and I hope to keep all Ghanaians in line as we vote.
All right, so Jata, we are leaving. What do you have to say to your fellow youth, especially looking at the fact that a lot of the things we speak or stood for has been upheld in the review report?
All right, Ofobi, thank you very much. I think I commend the efforts of the review committee. They did a very great job, and the fact that they were able to give the youth a youthful, representation by reducing the age to as low as 30 years. I mean, that's very commendable of them. But then one thing that bothers me a little bit is the political class. I do not have too much trust in the political class, in the sense that there are certain recommendations that may not directly serve their interests. And so I fear for the future that there is going to be a lot of back and forth. I believe that but I am believing that the MPs, especially the one that has to do with the MP7 only as MP and not as ministers
of state.
I think that particular one, they are going to contend it highly. They are going to fight against it. But whatsoever be the case, let us look at the bigger picture and let us all come to an understanding that if you want to be an MP, you should be an MP and focus on your job. If you want to be a minister, then you have to be that technocrat. You need to have that needed capacity and show working that truthfully you are competent to serve in that capacity. Then you would, toe that line of work. So, I mean, all will come together to, make our country a better place. We, the youth, we are looking forward to, we are entering 2026 and we don't want excuses. So if at the end of the day, we are even going to give the government 5 years, we still want to see results. And President John Dramani Mahama is doing amazing. And I always say the future is pregnant. So anyway, we are still
we still expect the future of Ghana to give birth to all these good plans that we are seeing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful. Nazar still wanted to say something, but
please allow me.
Anyway, yes, it's Sankofa Yenchi. Before we go, Nazar,
maybe eventually we have to do a part 2 of this, because there was also a mention of the capping of the Supreme Court justices now to 15. And now the Chief Justices, they are proposing that the Chief Justice serves a protected tenure of a single protected tenure of 10 years.
10 years without any interaction.
The District Assembly Common Fund is also going to be increased to represent 10% of our national revenue as well. And I believe that is a step in the right direction. Generally, I believe in the work that Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh and his team have done, and I believe in the legal counsel of the President, Madame Marietta Brew, to give some sound advice to the President on the areas that they have to relook at, and also Mr. Dominic Akuritinga, Ayine, Attorney General and his deputy, Dr. Sremsai, to give very positive advice and recommendations to the President, such that they're able to sanctify all the recommendations that have been brought to come and bless our country with it. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was expecting to see something on education. I mean, a situation whereby we have certain policies, that will be backed by the Constitution.
Oh, they are.
So, I mean, even though they were not key highlights, but we certainly have to come back again and relook at it.
Sure.
And I'm sure that in 2026, a lot is going to come out of these recommendations that the review committee has submitted in their report to the President. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. I appreciate you a lot, and I'm sure my viewers would also appreciate you. My people, this is where we draw the curtains down on today's episode. It's been an insightful conversation, and we've perused all the key highlights in the Constitutional Review Committee's report that was submitted to the President. Look, if there was anything that we failed to talk about and you deem fit that we discuss, get into the interactive session, that is the comment session on all our social media platforms. We are on YouTube, we are on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Look, let's get interactive over there and share your comments. Now, I always say on this show that one of these days, whatever you say will be aired on the show. My name still remains Samuel Ofobi Bamfa, and this has been the National Agenda. See you in another episode.